right, folks, welcome back to A Splendid Little War from Legion Games. Let's see, end of turn one, we only made one little mistake and we corrected it here. When you execute a fire combat, you will, if you take a loss, you will, and break down as a U.S. Army unit, you have the ability to break down the unit from its full regimental strength into 3 counters. And when you do that, you need to take what's called a morale check. It's pretty easy to pass. You need a 7 or less. Unfortunately, we rolled an 8 here, or a 9 actually. And so that meant that we had to move into broken mode. Now, there's no retreating or anything like that under that particular circumstance. So let's have a look at what happened. The units all have 4 movement points, except for these little guys that are broken down right now. They'll move a little quicker as discrete elements. And with 4 movement points, this is jungle terrain. It's going to cost 2 movement points. The track is going to cost 1. So we advanced, and this guy crossed the river here and snuck in this way. And we sent Lawson around the corner here, and here just assaulted into the trenches outside of El Caney. And the 12th and the 17th took on the El Viso fort, which is a pretty tough little nut to crack. We have not succeeded there yet. All of the Spanish units are 1-step counters. There was another one here in a trench. And this was interesting because we had established that this unit would move up and assault in, which fortunately for me wasn't required, because with the black powder guns, it's not good to assault with them. You receive a DRM that represents, I guess, their slow rate of fire. So what happened here was there was an exchange of fire. The first thing that happens in the sequence of play in the combat phase is defensive fire occurs. So this guy gets to fire at somebody, and this guy this guy that was here fired at somebody. And this chap here, even though this was being assaulted, he elected to fire here and see if he could get a hit, because they were in the open. There was a better chance of that happening. And he was fortunate enough to get a result there. Take a step loss, and away we go. Same happened here. They inflicted a step loss, but the unit that was in this hex was not successful. So all in all, 2 steps lost for both sides. More significant loss technically, I guess, for, let's see here, 2, 3, 4. No, exactly equal. So basically it's 1-for-1 losses at the moment. So that's what's going on around what's essentially scenario 1. That area, and that scenario is called, I think it's just called scenario 1. El Caney, capturing and conquering that is the game plan there. Assaults are straightforward odds situation, and there's an interesting rule there that I'm not 100% comfortable with. When you're firing defensive fire, so when this unit was here in the trench, and this guy's here about to assault, they get to fire first. So they fire, and then these guys get to fire offensive. Well, actually, they don't get to fire offensively because they're assaulting. They were assaulting. But when you fire at them, because they're assaulting, they're assumed to be in your hex and get the terrain benefit of the hex that you're in, which feels kind of odd to me. Wasn't certain that rule made a lot of sense to me, but it is what it is, I guess, given the scale of the hexes, which, let me check. I want to say it's 500 meters, but I would need to double check that. Let me see if I can find that real quick. Well, there you go. It's 1/5 of a mile. However many yards that is, that's how big the hexes are. So sure, let's call these guys in the same hex when it comes to assault fire for the defender, and then the assaulting unit then just does a straight up odds calculation. There's a handful of terrain types that halve the attack strength. I couldn't find anywhere that said that those halvings were cumulative. I think it would be silly if they were, but it's not explicitly stated. So it's a question I did have coming out of the first turn here. It also says for fire combat, so there's two results tables. There's an assault combat table and a fire results table, which I've shown you before. But the DRMs can certainly be cumulative, so that makes all the sense in the world, except for terrain. Of course, you just use the one that's best for the defender, or the person being shot at, or folks being shot at. So super simple, straightforward game from that perspective, other than a couple of little nuances around terminology and some explicit statements that things are or are not included. The results table, it's a D10 based set of results. And so, a D1 is going to be one step loss, which is that'll wipe out a Spanish unit pretty much. DMC is going to be a morale check +1. And then the higher up you roll, the worse it gets, right? So you can lose multiple steps in rolling 7, 8s, and 9s on the 1-to-1 column. And even all the way up at 4-to-1, you'll still run the risk of 4-to-1 here of a morale check. But you really need to be certain, 100% certain, have 5-to-1 odds, which, given the terrain, very difficult to do unless you're bringing multiple units from different hexes into the combat. All right, so that's that zone. Now down here, we had the rest of the forces, these independent units, General Bates, and then more elements from 2nd Division started down in this bivouac area. And so they marched up the road, and all of the rest of the units, Roosevelt and all those boys, General Kent's forces, all will activate in the second turn, which we're about to start. Spanish did not do anything. They did not move any units here, nor did they fire offensively in this turn. It didn't seem worthwhile to me to take the risk of executing fire combats, knowing that the enemy would probably fire back and had a much better chance of eliminating me than I had of either breaking them or forcing them to retreat or eliminating a step. So there you go. So that's kind of the end of turn 1. We'll move into the Rough Riders assault coming up.